In this video on coordinate geometry of the line, we're going to look at how to use a line's equation to visualize that line on the coordinate plane. And I'm particularly going to look at this in light of the equation being written in the form y equals mx plus c. So I've spent a bit of time emphasizing that y equals mx plus c is a nice way to write the equation of your line. And this is kind of where this all becomes a bit more obvious, because the equation of the line, when written in this format, tells you two key pieces of information about the line and how it looks. The coefficient of the x tells you the slope value, and the constant at the end of the equation tells you the y-intercept. Just so that we're very clear on what the y-intercept actually refers to before we go on to do a full proper question, let's just take a moment to picture a coordinate plane. We've got an x-axis and we've got a y-axis, and I'm going to draw a line, any line. So I've drawn this line here in green, and the value where it passes through the y-axis is called its y-intercept. Obviously this line also has an x-intercept, but I can't read that directly from my equation. So in the questions that follow, we're going to be given an equation and we want to use it to complete a graph or draw a diagram of what that line looks like. So here's example 1, y equals 2x plus 1. So I'm going to start by drawing an xy plane, and I'm going to mark in numbers on this plane, on each of the axes. Take a moment to do this yourself and pause the video while you set it up. Okay, now I'm ready to draw my line. So let's have a look at our equation. So the first thing that I'm going to notice there is that plus 1 at the end is my y-intercept. So I know straight away where this line will go through the y-axis. So I'm going to go to that point on the y-axis and I'm going to mark it with a dot. Okay, so now back to the equation again. So I note that the coefficient of x is 2. So this tells me the slope of the line is 2, and I'm abbreviating that to m for slope. Note the slope is rise over run. In this case, the slope of 2 could be written as 2 over 1 if I want to clearly see what the rise and run are. So now that I'm at my point on the y-intercept, I'm going to use this information about the slope to figure out some other point on the line. So I know that if I use a run of 1 and a rise of 2, I should still stay on the line. So I'm going to go across one space, that's my run of 1, and up 2 spaces to stay on the line. This allows me to mark in a second point. And now, of course, that I have 2 points, all I have to do to graph the line is simply join them. So now I've been able to visualize what this line looks like on the coordinate plane just by looking at those 2 pieces of information in the equation of that line. Let's do a second example. So this time we have an equation of a line y equals minus 3 over 2x plus 3. Again, take a moment to set up an xy plane for yourself, and then when you've done that, come back and watch the video and we'll see how the graph works. Okay, so now I've got my xy plane set up, and now I'm going to go back and look at my equation to figure out the clues that I can use to draw my line. And the first thing that I'll notice is that plus 3 at the end, the constant by itself, is the y-intercept. So that means this is where the line goes through the y-axis, and I'll mark that point. Here it is on 3 on the y-axis. And then I again go back to my equation of my line, and this time note my slope. Again, the slope is always the coefficient of x. I can see that my slope is minus 3 over 2. And as we referred to earlier, slope is rise over run. So I know that my run should be 2, and my rise, which is really a fall because it's negative, will be negative 3. So I'm going to start at this point here on the y-axis, and I'm going to use a run of 2, so go across 2 boxes, and then go down 3 boxes to decide on the next point. And with that, I end up at the point 2, 0 on the x-axis. Now that I have 2 points on the line, I can join them to make the line. And I draw a line that passes through those 2 points. And that line that I've just drawn is the line y equals minus 3 over 2x plus 3. Okay, so here's a question for you to do yourself, and it's y equals 1/4 x minus 1. So take a moment to draw your xy plane, and then mark in whatever information you can glean from your equation in order to create the graph of the line. Play when you're ready and check and see if you're correct. Okay, so I have my xy plane set up, and I want to go and look at my equation for information. So again, the constant at the end there, that minus 1 with no x attached, that's going to be the y-intercept. So I can go straight to that value on the y-axis and mark a point. And I've marked it just here at minus 1. Now I go back and note the coefficient of x, and this is my slope. Remember that slope is rise over run. So let's have a look at this slope. So I've got a run of 4, so I have to go across 4 boxes, and I've got a rise of 1, so I have to go up 1 box. So starting from -1, I'll go across 4 boxes and up 1 box. I'll mark a point there, and then I'll join my 2 points together to complete my line. And there's my graph done. Let's do one more. So here we go, and I'm being a bit tricky this time because this doesn't look exactly like the previous equations have looked. So take a moment to have a look at it, and then go and draw your XY plane and see, can you graph the line from this information? Pause the video while you do that, and then play and see if you're correct. So I have my XY plane set up ready to go, and I'll go and have a look at my equation over here. Now, you might notice what's different this time is that I've put my information here on the right hand side in a slightly different order. That can happen sometimes. So it's just important that I look at the right pieces of information to identify the right things on my graph. So first of all, my Y-intercept. Now, what do you think your Y-intercept is in this case? Well, don't forget, y equals whatever's over here on the right hand side, it's the constant on the right hand side that is the Y-intercept. And this time, that's 2. It's the number by itself without the x. So I'll go to 2 on the y-axis and mark the point. Next, I'll identify the slope. And of course, the slope again is the coefficient of x. So in this case, -1/2 is my slope. Again, slope is rise over run. So let's have a look at this one. My run is 2. I'll go 2 boxes across. And my rise, well, actually, it's a -1, isn't it? So it'll actually be a fall. So I'm going to go down 1 box. So starting at the y-intercept, across 2 boxes, down 1 box. And there's my point. Now I'll join those 2 points to make my line. So we can see now quite easily how the equation of our line written in the form y equals mx plus c directly relates to how that line actually looks on a graph. It's very important to note that the techniques that I've shown you in this video cannot be used if a line is written in the form ax plus by plus c equals 0. They can only be applied if our line is written in the form y equals mx plus c.